Hello, people, and Bitcoin might pump big next week, or will it dump? Now, we've all talked about these issues before, but this is like one grand encompassing macro analysis, or just what will actually happen. Not really macro analysis, I guess, just what will happen, possible scenarios when Bitcoin gets the ETF. And yes, I do believe we will get the ETF next week. We have several signs telling us so. Basically, we have a Bitcoin final ETF application, and like the SEC has been meeting with these crypto firms, getting the file not just the like the S1, but also like the 8A, the 19, and now finally the 19B4 filings. And BlackRock, Grayscale, Fidelity, and other issuers basically have filed all of those. Now, the SEC generally doesn't tell these firms to actually file these things unless it's actually about to approve a product and they just need to get all the ducks in a line. This is what this week has mostly been. The SEC meeting over and over and over again with these issuers and telling them to file all the paperwork, which means that they are actually getting ready to approve. So, once again, 95% approval chance next week. What will actually happen? Now, some of you believe there's going to be a post-ETF dump. If there is, it's going to be very, very short, and it'll bounce back up. So I wouldn't actually suggest selling off at the ETF point, because we have people saying that BlackRock has $1.5 billion that they're going to pour into the ETF as soon as it basically opens. So the thing is, like, if the SEC approves the ETF on Wednesday, they'll probably open up the Monday afterwards. So you might have like 2 or 3 days, if there's even a dump at all, to sell out and buy back in. And if you want to play that window, well, that's on you. I can't really stop you, but I honestly wouldn't do it because there might not be that much of a dump at all. Because I do think like people on the inside will know that BlackRock is going to actually buy that much Bitcoin within a few days, and they're going to want to buy it up. So it's very, very risky to sell out at that point. I know the knowledge is buy the rumor, sell the news, but we've never really had news that results directly in buying Bitcoin. And some of you are saying, well, they're going to buy OTC or P2P. They're not going to buy P2P because there's not enough P2P liquidity for these guys. P2P is incredibly small. It's been getting smaller and smaller in the recent years. In fact, like some of the outlets of local Bitcoins have gotten so little volume that they actually had to close a while back. So there's not enough P2P, nowhere near enough. OTC, yeah, there's a lot of OTC, but here's the thing, like the OTC price needs to be less than the exchange price, and there's only so much of a supply of OTC. If BlackRock is doing 1.5 billion, you can bet that like 21 Shares, ARK Invest, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, Grayscale, and all these others, they're going to be actually like buying this stuff. Now, it is true that BlackRock might liquidate some of their futures to actually buy spot Bitcoin, and if they do that, it could dump down a little bit. So if you have like your view up on the future stuff, you might be able to like arbitrage some profit out of that. I can definitely see that because there's a lot of pundits actually saying that like, yeah, like they're going to liquidate some of their futures holdings or cash out of their futures holdings and essentially buy Bitcoin with that. And that could be a possibility, but I don't really think so. Those futures products have been performing very well. So they'll probably just like take the money that people have given them to actually buy these funds to buying these funds. And the thing is, like, there are going to be significant amounts of institutional interest in this crypto product for sure. So there's going to be billions of dollars coming in, and they're going to use that to buy the funds. Remember, this is a cash redemption. So people aren't giving them like other assets to trade for these Bitcoin ETF shares. They're directly giving them cash, so they're buying the stuff with cash. So that should definitely help the market. So that's why I wouldn't bet on that much of a sell-off, because there's a direct demand increase once this ETF actually passes. And I do believe that like once the ETF passes, like, through the subsequent months, we're going to have like several hundred million each month of actually Bitcoin buys to actually make up for how many billion they want. Now, I'm not even talking about the Qatar Sovereign Fund because I don't really have too much information about that. People are saying like it's 500 billion over 10 years, but I don't think it's actually that much. But even a fraction of that would be huge for crypto. But people are realistically saying BlackRock is 150 billion over 3 years for the Bitcoin ETF. That's $50 billion a year. And that really rounds down to hundreds of millions of dollars per day. If you just crunch the numbers, you can see that there's like a lot of buying pressure from this ETF. It doesn't actually matter if they buy via BlackRock, 21 shares, Fidelity. That's completely irrelevant. They're all going to be competing against each other, but they're all spot cash-based ETFs. So essentially, like once people buy the ETF shares, these companies are going to have to buy Bitcoin. So it's very, very easy to understand from that angle where this demand is actually going to come from. And that kind of demand, especially built up over time, will result in a much higher Bitcoin price and will provide some like a foundational lower price. There might be some retail buy and sells, but I don't know how much that's going to move the price over a backdrop of like, let's say $100 million worth of buying a day. And compared to like, the volume of Bitcoin, you might be like 100 million isn't really that much. But you have to remember a lot of the Bitcoin out there that reads on the volume is actually wash trading. And that doesn't affect the price at all. That's just to make it look like that a lot of people are buying and trading Bitcoin. But the actual amount of buys and trades is probably quite a bit lower. I know we've heard on Binance before that like a lot of their volume was, like a lot of their volume was wash trading. And Binance is one of the more closely monitored exchanges being so big. The other smaller exchanges is nearly pretty much all wash trading. So a huge flux of $100 million a day will actually affect it, even though it's not very significant compared to the overall market cap. And that's that kind of buying is going to dry up pretty much all the sells. Now, like I said, like if there's like several $100 million of sells because they're selling the news, that might drop it for a bit. And like there's the fear of like the grayscale liquidations in converting from a GBTC to a Bitcoin ETF. So that's where your main sell-off is going to come from, and that's probably going to last 2 or 3 days if it actually happens. So your window of opportunity is 2 or 3 days. Now, would I actually buy right now? I would actually buy right now. I wouldn't buy altcoins right now. I would buy Bitcoin because the money's fluxing into Bitcoin first before it diverts out into altcoins. So I would if I had a stack of cash or dry powder, as you guys call it, I would probably buy half right now and then wait to see if it actually dips after the ETF. And then maybe like next week at this time or next weekend, I would be looking to probably invest the rest of that money because that'll probably be post dip. And once it post dips, it's going to rebound fairly quickly as people are going to want to buy the lower price of Bitcoin before the ETFs really kick in. Yes, like after the ETF stuff, like people can short the ETF, but after the gold ETF, gold did go down for a bit and then it just went up for several years in a row. Now, I'm expecting the downward portion of the Bitcoin to be much, much faster because, it's an international market. People can buy at the click of a mouse. And when the gold, future stuff actually came out, that really wasn't the case. The process was much, much slower. But now, the process is pretty much automatic. And because it's automatic, I expect it to go a lot faster. I expect if it dumps, it'll dump 10, 15% very, very quickly, or 20% possibly very quickly within a day or two. And if that actually happens, it'll probably bounce back up by the end of the weekend as demand kind of rolls in. And these big companies, once they see that 20% dip, they're probably going to be wanting to get into that price. And I think that kind of thinking is kind of mistaken because it's not like these big funds are buying crypto for themselves. They're simply just holding it for their customers. So it actually doesn't make too much. It doesn't actually make too much difference what price they actually get in at. I mean, they're just going to hold it. And if the customers want to redeem out, they're going to have to sell it and redeem out. That's how these funds work. It's not actually their Bitcoin. It's their customers' Bitcoin. So to them, it doesn't actually matter how much or less they actually buy it at. It's completely irrelevant to BlackRock and Fidelity. Basically, the customers give them cash and then they use that cash to buy Bitcoin. I don't know how much chance there is for them to actually play arbitrage on these funds because they have to hold 100% of the assets and they are going to be pretty thoroughly audited every once in a while. So they can't really play with it all that much. I mean, I think that's just how all these funds work. I think people will definitely buy into all these funds. Like I said, I would buy Bitcoin right now. I would wait maybe a week or so. Unless Bitcoin really super takes off, I would wait a week or so a week or two to get into altcoins afterwards. Because I think it's going to be Bitcoin that gets most of the benefits for the time being because the money is being fluxed right into Bitcoin. And it'll take probably a while for that money to filter out into altcoins because you're depending on these big buys head on for Bitcoin price, but you're also depending on retail to actually come in for the altcoin price. And I bet retail will come in for the altcoin price, but not until you get a big improvement in the Bitcoin price first. I mean, this might take us fairly close to the all-time high, before the halving. And we know the miners need it because the mining costs will double after the halving, and the hash rate's been going up like crazy, probably in anticipation of the ETF too. Like the cost to mine Bitcoin is going to be like 40K or more after the halving, and I think you need significant margin for these mining companies to actually make it, because mining like involves buying all the, it's not just the electricity cost. You have to buy like all the equipment, like lease the land, housing, and everything. There's a lot of hidden costs in there, and they probably want a healthy margin. So if your cost is 40,000, you probably want like 50,000 per Bitcoin to actually make it like a safe profit margin. I know they've been going up a lot, but like in any kind of business, you want some kind of safety factor. Plus, they might have actually been losing some money during the bear market as well. So I would watch what the big wallets are actually doing. There's been a small bit of Bitcoin sell-off, but I think that will actually be like compensated by BlackRock actually buying in and other companies actually buying in. But overall, like I don't believe in a big dip like next week. But I would hold my powder until maybe like next weekend. At least some of my money until next weekend to see if I can buy in at a lower price. But I would buy in part of it right now because there could be a surge up that you miss as well. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.